Hey folks, Dave here. I am in my studio playing around with something that I haven't played around with in quite some time, which is a TV monitor, which is just sitting in my studio here. Normally there's a big light box in front of it, which I've showed off a couple times in this channel. But what sits behind it is a 55-inch screen 4K TV. And that has a lot of potential for toy photography efforts, mainly because it can be used to display backgrounds. I can put whatever background I want onto this device. So what I have here is my laptop running HDMI over to the TV, and then I have a Spider-Man and my camera pointed at Spider-Man trying to get a shot. So I figured I'd talk about some of the benefits of this setup and what it can do for me. So the first thing is that I can display whatever I want on that TV and it will show it as background for my shot. So for example, if I grab Photoshop, which is on my laptop screen, and just run it over to my desktop screen, you can see immediately on the camera, the background is now the shot from my archives, which is super handy because I can do whatever I want to with this in real time. So for example, if this is too bright, I can just use Photoshop and say, take the brightness contrast and just dim it down. So I can adjust this whatever I want. I can either show a actual screen image, or I can show just colors. So if I wanted to, if I just wanted the background of Spidey here to be just green, I can just grab a brush, make it green, and then when I paint, the background's green, and it's all done in real time. This should save me a lot of compositing because oftentimes my compositing is shoot the action figure, crop them out, stick them on a background, done for me, win. Let's see how I can work with this. There's a dozen options for this. I could do I could do whatever I want. I mean, that's the thing. I could do whatever I want. Creativity, expanded, win. So I figure for the rest of this video, what I do is just do one shot with this background and see what the potentials of this actually are. So things to look for in a screen. I picked a 55-inch flat screen HK screen. It's just a regular TV. You'd buy at Best Buy or wherever you buy TVs in your particular country. So the reason why I picked that screen is that the 4K gives me lots of resolution for the background, but the size of it, because I shoot 12-inch action figures, I wanted the background to be big enough so that if I had a wide camera lens, I can expand out and get a lot of background even though I have a wide lens. And a 12-inch figure, if you kind of double the size, that's a 24-inch background. So I wanted the height of 24 inches, which is what I was really going for. And the fact that it's 55 inches wide, or I guess diagonal probably, is just the way TVs come. That's the 1080p format, which 4K is the same format, just more pixels per inch. So that's what I've used. I have the screen set to have very high contrast, and I adjust the brightness so it seemed to look good. Put it on movie mode, which seems to give more pure blacks, which I like. So that is the screen that I picked. Okay, so I have this set up here. What I have is Spider-Man with his thwip shooting a web out towards camera. I want to capture mainly Spidey's head being in focus, the background going out of focus, and I'm not so concerned about the front of his hand being out of focus. So that's kind of the shot I want. So just kind of a very close in, intimate shot. So this background here is not New York City. So I'm going to swap it out for a photo I took many, many years ago that is New York City. So I'm just going to move the background around until it kind of matches the background that I'm looking for. So as I move it around, the stuff in camera moves around, and I'm just going to stick this maybe kind of like, okay. So that's the framing. I'm going to, let's see here. Let's see if we can play with this. The nice thing is I can also make it bigger and smaller. If I want to make it bigger, I can just do this. So let's make it bigger in frame. Oh, I like that. I like that. So with this right here, what I'm seeing is the city, but all the bright lights on the horizon are not really showing through. It's just the city itself, which is kind of nice. So that's the image in the back screen. That is Spider-Man there and the background. So all of that is kind of feeding together for the look that I'm looking for. So let's talk about lights. So Spider-Man is dark at this point in time. That needs to be fixed. The way to do that, as with all photography, is to add lights. So I'm going to introduce a light. This is a Lume Cube panel on a Platypod gooseneck and a Platypod Max as a base. And we'll use that to add in some light. So I'll just turn this sucker on. Boom. There we go. Now we have lots of light. And if you look at the behind the camera here, the light actually shines a much dramatic effect. So light on, light off. So we'll turn it back on. One thing you have to be wary of is reflections in the background. The TV is very shiny, and it shines pretty much any light that is in the immediate area. And as you can see, I have lots of light in the immediate area, and they're all shining down onto that screen, making all sorts of weird reflections and stuff. So you have two choices. You can either use the light that's there, use those reflections as part of your composition, or get rid of them and turn off the lights. And I don't want to turn off the lights because my lighting here is perfect, but I really just need to be careful when I'm using the background TV that I don't put reflections where I don't want them. So as an example, if I take a flashlight here and I just shine it on the background, you can see that on the TV, you can see that there's a big reflection in the background. So you have to really be careful about how to light these figures so we don't get the reflection in the background. When I do manual focusing, like I'm manual focusing on Spider-Man here, my goal is to get Spider-Man's face in scene and as much in front of it in focus as I can. I'm never going to get it all in focus based on focal lengths and the various properties of how lenses work. However, I want to get as close as possible. I'm looking for that blurred out effect to be part of the composition, but I don't want to blur it out too much. So I have my lens actually maxed out at f/16. That's as narrow as this lens goes. That's the biggest depth of field. But there's still a depth of field, right? Like there's still a range of focus and in focus. And I want to make sure that range hits the mask at the back end and leaves as much forend for the front. So the way I do that is when I set the manual focus, I always use manual focus for this type of stuff because automatic focus always gets in the way. There's a little computer algorithm in there that tries to figure out what the focus is, and it's always going to mess up. At least Murphy's Law says, and life experience has said, it's going to mess up when you actually need to take the shot. So if you're on a tripod in a controlled studio environment, use manual focus. It will save your sanity. To make sure that focus, that depth of focus is exactly where I want it, which is all mostly in front. When I want that situation, what I do is when I focus, put the front thing in focus, and then I slowly adjust the focus until just barely the manual focus hits the back end I want in frame. And that makes sure that this distance, this depth of field distance is in the right place. So in my case, in front of Spidey's mask going forward as much as possible, that is the right space. So I don't end up, if I just manually focus with Spider-Man here, I may get the depth of field over here where his mask is in focus, but everything behind him is in focus, and that's not what I want. I want everything in front of him in focus, so I want to shift it over here. So when I start the manual focusing, I start in front of it and slowly move over until the exact thing I want is in frame. Then that is the best focal length or the best depth of field that I can manage with that particular setup. I'm going to play around with this photo just a little bit more, just to get my composition nailed in and get my focus nailed in to the exact way I want it. Tweak the lights just a little bit. Nothing special, just kind of, a slight tweak here and there, just to kind of get the light perfect. And then I'll show you the final image. So I think that's pretty much it for me for now. Please leave comments below if you have any questions. Please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.